Hey guys, it's Crossroads here. Today I wanted to talk to you about HIMS and HERS, ticker symbol HIMS, and give an update as there's been three big pieces of bullish news that have dropped over the past 2 weeks. And it's important that we as investors consider and talk about them, even though there are some short-term bearish things to consider as well. Let's take a look. So the first of these is this announcement that happened on July 9th. HIMS and HERS announces planned 2026 expansion to Canada following Zava acquisition completion. Of course, Zava is an expansion into basically the healthcare platform in Europe itself, and we'll have to see how that goes. But it sounds like at least rumors are that they got a pretty decent price on that, which I'm excited about. But specifically, this announcement talked about entering Canada, specifically mentioning semaglutide a number of times. Now, if you've been following HIMS and HERS, of course, semaglutide here in the United States has gone off the shortage list, and they can no longer sell it under the 503B shortage list exception, only 503A for if there are is a medical necessity and on a much smaller dose and batch typically. And so why in the world would they announce this for January or probably January 5th or thereafter in Canada? And it specifically has to do with something that Novo Nordisk did, or rather didn't do. Now, I won't show you the whole story here. This is well worth a read, though, because it's hilarious. But this is from MarketWatch. The story of how Novo Nordisk will lose billions because it didn't pay a couple of $100. And that refers to basically what happened with Canada. Canada patent law requires the company to re-up their patent every once in a while. They didn't do it. I think it was something like $250. I don't know if it's Canadian or US, doesn't really matter. And so they were sent notification and warning, and there was also a fine attached to it because they were paying it late, and they didn't do it for whatever reason. Whoever was responsible for this is likely being fired. Perhaps that's why we've seen some change in the C-suite there for Novo Nordisk. Regardless, this means the patent expires for Novo Nordisk as it relates to semaglutide in Canada in January after January 5th. So as a result, HIMS and HERS and certainly other companies as well can issue and launch semaglutide there just directly and sell it and scale it as well. Now, that is a bit more socialized medicine, so it may not be extremely high margin, just like we saw when they were compounding here in the United States, but it looks like it's going to be possibly a similar price point. We'll have to see how that rolls out. Nevertheless, even though Canada may not have a massive population, it's still sizable, and about a third of that population is overweight as well. I expect, because of the way that they market and their go-to-market approach, that they will do quite well in that space. And that's probably not going to be the only thing that HIMS and HERS offers as well. Now, the other big piece of news, and there's actually two more, is this right here. Specifically, they announced that they were unlocking the next level of personalized healthcare with HIMS at home testing offers. So they made a small acquisition in the past with in-home test kits, and I expect that this is at least a piece of what they're launching. This isn't fully launched yet, but we do see a glimpse of these in-home tests, which are still in the United States, but a little bit more rare than perhaps other parts of the world. And basically, you can run a test for many different types of treatments. And so we look here from heart health to kidney health, liver health, cancer detection, pancreas health, sexual health, stress and aging, male and female health, thyroid health, nutrients and electrolyte lights. This is an interesting product, especially the way that HIMS launches it, the way that HIMS actually goes about this as well. Now, we don't know the pricing. It says affordable pricing, but we'll have to see what this actually looks like. And it says our cutting-edge facility in New Jersey will process blood tests at affordable prices for HIMS and HERS subscribers using state-of-the-art diagnostic equipment. So this is very much to do with that small acquisition that they did. They tend to handle acquisitions quite well. And so we'll see what the price point looks like. But it wouldn't surprise me if the way that HIMS and HERS actually uses this is as a bit of a loss leader. So, for example, if the actual kit, and we see some kits that are priced out there between the $200 and $400 range from other providers, perhaps HIMS is willing to take a loss on that. So it actually costs them to process maybe $200. Maybe they sell this for $100. So there is some cost to it. People aren't just signing it up that aren't really seeking care. But the reason why HIMS may want to do this is if somebody, for instance, myself, this might be the first HIMS and HERS product that I actually use. I have had one minor health concern recently. And ultimately I'll probably go to the doctor for it. But if this was available right now and it was $100, I'd probably say, you know what, let me run this because it may catch some things that the doctor's office might not, because they'll just say, oh, you've got to go home, good enough. So having this come back, and let's say, for instance, hypothetically, I don't think that this is the case, but if we end up having some mental health issues, so let's say that my testosterone levels are very, very low, or there's potentially a problem with nutrients and electrolytes, or an issue with my kidney health. Now, they don't have a solution for every single one of these products or issues yet, but for a lot of them, they will have products lined up there. For instance, the testosterone specifically, and also for ladies, estrogen replacement as well. Those are products that launch actually sooner rather than later. The testosterone is expected to launch in the second half, and that's going to be a big product. A lot of people don't like getting shots, but oral testosterone is a big deal. So I imagine that this may be a bit of a loss leader, and yet it ends up bringing in a whole lot more customers. And there is a cost to customer acquisition, but there's a relatively quick payback period, especially with their level of personalization that they're able to offer and their scale as well. So I'm very excited about this. A lot of things that HIMS drops, for instance, the gummy that they dropped a few weeks ago, not even going to talk about it much. I'm like, hey, it's a nice product. They've added it. That's nice. They'll do that along the way. Not a big deal. This fills up that flywheel massively, and I think it could be a very big deal. We'll have to see what that looks like. Now, the other piece of news that I thought was really interesting and also bullish, this article, not so much, but there's a piece to it. Washington Post had an exclusive that said the unlikely pact and breakup of a drug maker and telehealth star. And so they interviewed a lot of people on basically both sides of this conflict. But the CEO of HIMS and HERS is actually, a large person that they talked to, and specifically. And one of those things that was quoted here, this is from HIMS House on X, but I wanted to bring this up because he captured the article. He mentioned this, is it said that they met for a couple of hours with Moore and his leadership team and directly raised the biggest point of friction, according to Dudum. HIMS and HERS plan to continue offering personalized doses of compounded semaglutide under a regulation, that's 503A pharmacy exception. And while they didn't like it and they weren't excited about it, dissatisfaction right there, they didn't talk about dropping this altogether. And instead, they even talked about partnering on a future project as well. So the CEO specifically said, yeah, he's open to a partnership in the future. We'll see where that goes. To me, this illustrates that perhaps there's a little bit less risk for a lawsuit from Novo Nordisk. We'll have to see. And I think it might be sometime after Q2 earnings drops here in August for us to really know that for sure. I think there is a risk if they're doing a lot of compounding and we see that in the revenue, that Novo Nordisk might say, hey, wait a minute, this is not right. And as a result, the lawsuit drops. Now, if it doesn't drop in the next couple of months, I don't know that it will at all, at least under this current framework. So Andrew ended up commenting on this specifically, and he said that he interviewed with Washington Post for the story, calling it a pivotal moment in healthcare, one where we can choose a future built on access, affordability, and patience as individuals. And it's not just about innovation, it's about empowering providers and patients, expanding choice, and putting people at the center of care. Now, you may disagree with it. That's fine. That's your right to do so. Nevertheless, I thought that was an interesting breakthrough. And so this is going to be a really interesting thing to keep on, because that really is the biggest piece of bearish risk, is that they're using the 503A in a way that ends up getting them sued. I think that that's actually still a high possibility, but perhaps the chances are a little bit less now with that article and a little bit more details coming out as well. Nevertheless, it was certainly bullish to hear some of that news. And also especially about that massive flywheel generator from the in-home test kits, as well as the expansion into Canada. A lot of things are working well with him. So what am I doing with my position? Well, if you remember, I actually had a video on this and I talked about taking some off the table. It had been a big runner for me just because of that lawsuit risk, which I thought was forthcoming. It has not dropped yet. And I think it's a little bit less likely now. I still think Q2 might be a challenge. They did guide for sequential drop in terms of revenue, and sometimes the market can be a little bit stupid and not understand. Even though it should know this, HIMS and HERS said that this was happening as a result of moving off that shortage list and not being able to have that full quarter of that compounded semaglutide the way that they would do it in the past. So if they show a massive revenue spike and increase, I think the lawsuit risk goes up. If they show less revenue than expected, that's also a challenge. So it might be one of those just challenging no-win quarters. Nevertheless, they're more than just weight loss. There's a lot of aspects to this company. That flywheel just gets stronger and stronger, as does the differentiation. And really, as they bring a lot of people here, this is one thing I didn't mention and talk about, but with that in-home testing kit, that gives them a lot more customers. That gives them a lot more data as well to work with. And so those inferences from MedMatch continue to get better and better and stronger as time goes on. So I think that's the reason why the stock is running, besides everything being a little bit bullish at this point. I did add some HIMS and HERS this morning when we opened up as far as the market, actually maybe just a little bit before the opening. I was excited to do so, especially with this testing. I think that's going to be an incredible addition. So beyond that, I continue to sell some cash secured puts on HIMS. If it falls there, great. If it doesn't, I still have a position. I'll continue to have a position as well for a long time. But we'll have to see where the stock goes. It tends to be very volatile in both directions, which, by the way, is an option seller's dream. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you buying more HIMS here? Are you looking to take gains? Do you think that the risk is even more so for the lawsuit? Or maybe I'm just overstating it and it's not going to happen. I'd love to hear it in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, commenting, and subscribing. Also, let me know what you think of the new format. A little bit different camera, a little bit different setup on the lighting. I'm still tweaking and playing with it, but I'd love to hear that feedback. Trying to improve here, not just for the way it looks, although that helps, but also the content as well, which is the most important. Thank you guys for being with me in this journey. Take care.